Let's unpack this a little bit. I think to answer her first question, am I completely overthinking this, or is this a serious problem? I don't know as if it's a serious problem as much as it could develop into one. I don't think she's overthinking it. If it's something that she's concerned about, then I don't think it's possible to overthink it.
Right.
That's a legitimate concern.
Yes.
When somebody says that they feel like they deserve to die for hurting you,
wow.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Right.
Automatically, my mind went to, is this attention-seeking behavior, or is he serious? Which I don't know. Obviously, I mean, if she felt compelled enough to write about this, I'm assuming that she has ruled out this as being attention-seeking behavior.
Yeah, she seems to take it seriously anyway.
Yes, absolutely. So what I kind of get from this is that he identifies this as being a problem, but doesn't want to really address it.
Yeah.
So there's kind of this conflict going on with him of he seems to understand that this is not right, but then when it comes to, getting help.
Right.
No, I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that.
Well, what is your other option? Do you just hope this goes away?
Right.
I would love to talk to him and kind of figure out, what do you want to do about this? Obviously, this is affecting your girlfriend, who obviously is very important to you.
And she seems to be thrilled about him. I mean, half that letter was, he's awesome. I love him, but he doesn't seem to love himself.
Yeah, so to kind of answer your question, unprepared adult, yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that you can support him. I think there's a lot of ways that you can help. Being supportive of him getting any kind of help, whatever it is that he's willing to do. If he's not willing to go into therapy, is he willing to talk to somebody? Is there if he's part of a church, is there a pastor that he can talk to? Or if he's part of any other kind of support system, is there anybody that he can turn to outside of the relationship to ask questions and get some good, honest feedback about this? To me, I'm hearing a lot of insecurity. I'm hearing a lot of, in a way, fear of maybe losing this relationship and the fear of possibly being alone. It'd be really interesting to get some more information on his backstory as far as previous relationships. There's part of this that even I can kind of relate to.
Sure.
Having been in a 10-year-long relationship and having that end suddenly, and it's like your entire foundation is completely crumbled. And the idea of being alone is scary. And then you start to say things like this because it's you interpret everything as being a much bigger deal than it really is. Right? So that would be something that would definitely need to be addressed in hopefully therapy. If he becomes willing to address that. So as far as support, yes. I mean, just being there, being able to talk to him. And I would really kind of ask him, if this is something that he is concerned about and he knows you're concerned about, throwing it back to him. What are you willing to do to address it? If you know that this is a problem, this isn't going to last forever, right? I mean, at some point, somebody's going to get frustrated.
I think that's huge. And, one of the things I heard you saying is you're telling her, it's not your responsibility to solve this. Like, you're witnessing the problem, but coming to him proactively and saying, can we both agree that this is a disproportionate response to what's happening?
Absolutely.
And can I put that ball in your court, right? I listened to this podcast, and these guys said maybe you should talk to somebody in your circle, a friend, a mentor, an old coach, a pastor, a teacher, somebody, your supervisor at work. Get some outside perspective on this thing, but I'm going to ask you and challenge you to do something about it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So when I hear this thing, the thing that I kind of take away is I kind of go back to marriage and family therapy. So in marriage and family therapy, we talk about what's called the relationship triangle. So like 3 different things that you could be in a relationship. And usually we see that one person is one thing and one person's the other thing, and they kind of swap around. So those 3 things are the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. So the persecutor beats the other person up verbally, kind of picks on them. The rescuer is always trying to make things better, and the victim's always, beating themselves up and kind of self-hating. In this situation, I kind of see that she goes from being the persecutor 1 second of like, hey, don't attack me. And then he flips over and becomes the victim. And he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. I'm so sorry. And now she has to switch roles. And so she switches over to the rescuer. And she's like soothing him and saying, hey, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
Right.
And then sometimes he flips over to the persecutor, right? And so what's interesting about that is if she continues to be only the rescuer and he's constantly fading back to the victim, what you said earlier is true. She's going to get exhausted. This is not a cycle that can continue in perpetuity.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. So I think Nick's advice is right on. It's time to interject a third person into this thing to sort of take a look at this wheelhouse of like this triangle relationship and get him to a place where he doesn't automatically become the victim, that he can sort of see himself doing it and think that through before he just lashes out and starts self-hating. That's unproductive and it's not going to last.
Absolutely. All right. Our next listener writes in, why am I sexually attracted to my therapist? Some background info. I am a 23-year-old female who is currently seeing a 28-year-old female therapist who is an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker. I graduated with my bachelor's of social work in May, and I plan to start my master's of social work in August to become an LCSW as well. So, to our listener, first off, right away, good call.
Oh, come on.
even Dr. Jobin will admit that is a good decision. If you're going to pick that, yes.
He's biased. Don't listen to him.
It's marketable. That's all I'm saying. All right, moving on. Back to our listener. This is part of the reason why I chose an LCSW, because I felt we would have a lot in common. I'm in therapy to take care of a lot of my baggage to prevent it from affecting future clients. Here's the tricky part. I have started to have sexual feelings towards her, and my body has physical reactions during sessions. I'm super confused about this because I've always identified as straight. In fact, I have been in a long-term relationship with my current boyfriend for 3 years. Therefore, I'm not sure if transference would even be relevant to this situation. I know that transference is a strong possibility considering I've always been straight. I find myself having these sexual fantasies and then wishing we could be friends outside of the session. She has complementary personality traits, which I find attractive, and of course we have similar political and worldviews. So that's why I think there could be some transference going on. Do you think this is something that I should bring up to her? How exactly should I word it? Would it affect the quality of our relationship or freak her out?
Great question.
Any advice would help out a lot.
That is a great question, Nick.
Yes, this is a really good question, but honestly, it's not anything we haven't heard.
Yes.
Actually,
common.
a lot more common than what people think.
Yeah, really common. And I think that's one of the reasons people are scared sometimes to go see a therapist. So, Nick, she's using a lot of industry words that come from the profession because she's studying to be a therapist, right? So one of the things she said was transference. So transference is whenever the patient starts to have feelings for the therapist that don't reflect the accuracy of the relationship.
Right. So transference, a lot of times, it's basically what we relate from usually past relationships or past experiences that get passed on to the therapist. Right. Now, this doesn't only happen in therapy. This happens in real life.
All the time.
So a coworker of mine reminds me of a cousin that that I used to associate with and hang out with and spend a lot of time with. So I start treating that person as if they are that person.
Yes.
Right?
So this happens all the time in therapy. We'll sit down with people and they'll say, you kind of remind me of my father, or you remind me of my brother, or an ex-boyfriend, or my childhood friend, or whatever, right? And that's fine. We want to know that as a therapist. That's not weird to us. We expect it. There's a word for it, transference, so we're expecting it. In her case, she's saying that. She's saying, I wonder if this is transference. I'm not sure. That would honestly be my very first guess. Nick, have you ever had a patient who's actually told you, hey, I'm feeling an attraction, or there's some kind of way that I'm putting a mask on you that might affect our therapy?
In a way, yes, but it's never that clearly identified. My experience is that most of the clients that I've worked with where we've had this kind of transference, they don't even recognize it. Right. It's like they can't clearly put a label on it and say, "This, my therapist reminds me of so-and-so and I have these feelings." It's just, I have these feelings towards a therapist.
That's key.
They don't really recognize where it's coming from.
Right.
So in my personal experience, I haven't had clients tell me they're sexually attracted to me.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. Maybe they just weren't open about it. or maybe I'm just not physically
You're
sexually
just not. Maybe if you got a haircut.
No, but I have had it. This goes the other direction as well, where it can go into anger and hate.
Yes.
I have had an experience. There was a client that I was working with that just could not stand me. And I was having a lot of trouble breaking through with this particular individual. And in talking to my supervisor, I needed to get some feedback. Say, what can I do? How can I break through with this person? And she gave me some great advice. And she's like, ask him why he doesn't like you.
Yeah.
And it's like that.
Come right out with it.
That had not occurred to me. Yeah. So I did that in a session, and it was a breakthrough. It was huge because of what this person had gone through.
Right.
As a child, his younger sibling died while he was supposed to be taking care of him. And as a result, he was shunned by his family. They disassociated from him. And every human connection he made, the person ended up leaving. And so what ended up happening is that in our sessions, he started bonding with me.
And that made him
which
scared.
Creates the feeling of, you're going to leave me too.
Yes.
And so he automatically got
pushed you
angry.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he was taking out all of these feelings that he had, all these memories and all these associations with his family were transferred onto me.
Yes.
And then I became, this person that he would
Right.
target.
And I think that happens all the time. And I've had that happen. I remember when I was a student intern, how you said it a second ago, they don't tell you, right? They don't tell you, hey, I just want to self-report. I don't like you. Or, hey, you kind of remind me of my brother. Or, hey, I have feelings. They don't tell you. You just kind of pick up on it, and then you're trying to figure out what to do with it. So when I was a student intern in my master's, I had a patient. It was one of my very first patients. Like halfway through, she proposed that we elope to London. And yeah.
Wow.
So she just brought that up in all seriousness. She was like, so I really wanted to, float an idea. Don't hate me for it, but what do you think? We get on a plane, we go to London, we live out our days. And I was like, I do not know what to do.
Yeah,
so I did what you did. I ran to my supervisor and I was like, what do I do? And he was like, okay, first thing, don't get on a plane to
Don't do
London. Yeah, don't do that. You do need to say no. And I was like, yeah, I said no. And he goes, okay, now let's talk about it, right? And the deal is this. So to the writer, I think Nick and I would both agree, as therapists, we want to address the elephant in the room. We can't do things with your secrets if we don't know them. So it's okay. It's normal to feel these things. Bring it forward. We will digest it together. And then the second piece of advice, because you are in a master's program and you are learning how to be a therapist, do what I did and do what Nick did. Go to your supervisor. In this case, it's your professor. Go to your professor who's teaching you these things and say, so I'm visiting a therapist and I sometimes have these feelings. Can you give me feedback? It's important that you work on this now during your program when you're training to be a therapist. And not have any shame about this and not be confused by it. It's very normal to experience this.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important thing to remember. Talking to you, the individual who wrote this, that you're not doing anything wrong. This is normal. This does happen,
yes.
and that's okay. This is not anything that is out of the ordinary. Now, when it comes to the question of, should I address this? Should I bring this up in therapy? I would say yes. And I think your therapist is probably able to handle it.
That's right.
And I would even guess that this isn't the first time that it's happened.
Yes.
And here's the thing too, like, why are we in therapy? We're in therapy to learn about ourselves.
That's right.
This could be a great experience. This could be a doorway into learning something about you.
Yes.
That I think could be very therapeutically beneficial.
I think that's huge. And I think you just nailed it right on the head. The experiences that you have with your therapist, we are trying to intentionally elicit things out of you, which means we're trying to shuffle the deck and see what card comes out on top. And so it's really helpful when you tell us, hey, what you just said kind of bothered me, or what you just said really hits me. I thought about what you said all week because it's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. Oh man, that's so valuable, right? We need to know so that we can dig deeper and help you kind of achieve some insight into your own situation.
Right. Now, what do you think would be the potential problem of not bringing it up at all?
I think that you're poisoning the relationship. So now you have a secret about how you feel about the other person that will influence the power they have in this room, and it will influence their ability to speak to you and for you to receive what they say. Now you're more likely to agree with things that you would have challenged.